Oh, here we go. Yo, what's up, man? Nice to see your face.
You too, brother. You too. Okay, amazing. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for being here. This is recorded. It's being recorded on Loom. I really hope this works the first time. If it doesn't, then you guys are the 30 people that get to enter the future of robotic swarms that are going to take over the world, but in a good way, and tell everybody the truth. That's what we're about, right, Yannick? It's all about the truth. And at
That's what.
this point,
Uh,
man, if I can have a robot tell me what's going on with all these meme coins and the Trumps and the Melanias and I if you could just build me a robot that tells me which one's an official coin and which one's like it's like is official Elon real or is it, what's going on? So that's what we're going to go through today. First of all, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for watching, whoever is here. This conversation is going to be focused on like part of being in this community is to find that rare alpha and try to get in things early and also understand the risks and understand what's going on and fully have a cohesive framework of understanding. That's our don't fuck this up framework. So I would love to introduce the lovely Yannick from Swarm Network, right? And Yannick, if you want to just give a little bit of an intro about yourself, about the project before I go off on rants, because man, I never stop.
that's good, man. So I'm not the only one speaking. Um, yeah, man. Thanks first of all for allowing me to speak here today in your community. Seems you guys are pretty tight, and I had never heard of you guys, and I started to look into it, and I think it's rad, man. It's really nice. I think the future of the internet is really these communities, man, that we can all be a part of, and I really enjoy building communities and being part of communities. So yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. And my name is Yannick. I am originally from Holland. Um, and I've been building AI agents for the past, as long as I can remember. No, that's bullshit. Like since GPT-2 came out, we've been heavily building AI agents. Previously, I was with AGI, which is also a AI agent infrastructure project where I led not just the marketing, branding, and some of the ops, but also was highly involved with the tech. And eventually realized that I had other types of aspirations that were much bigger than what we were doing over there. So I decided to take my team that I had built up, including my CTO, and start our own project to create the next wave of decentralized swarms that are going to change the future.
Amazing. Now that's the kind of mission that we can stand behind. So okay, so let me try to see if I can sum it up in my own dumb brain of what is actually going on, right? I think as
Sure,
we're
go ahead.
moving into this world where AI takes over the world per se, it's going to, there's so many jobs
Mhm,
and so many activities that AI is going to do that humans do, but also it seems like a lot of things are going to happen that humans currently aren't capable of doing, and so there's going to be kind of new models built, right?
mhm,
My thesis has always been that
mhm,
blockchain as a technology is actually not really built for humans per se. It's built for humans to benefit from,
mhm,
but actually the reason why it's so confusing why something goes from 8 tenths of a penny to $100,000 like Bitcoin is because these smart contracts and these systems are
mhm,
building the frameworks of a future world where AIs, billions and trillions of AIs, would automatically exchange value between themselves and serve humanity and
mhm,
create new functions of ways of doing things. And that value will flow along these kind of blockchain rails. And that's why actually Swarm is the only
mhm,
project that actually reached out to me out of all the ones that do that I really got interested in. Because
mhm.
we've like Raul was talking about in one of his talks, he was saying like, look, having these singular agents that do this one function, it's cute for now, but tomorrow the model's going to
Yeah.
change and the way that they get deployed are going to change. So they become outdated. So as an investment vehicle, as a thesis, it just doesn't work. So, with
Yeah.
Swarm, it sounded like, that we can buy licenses of agents, and then those can be programmed to do
Yep.
functional things. They can all work together to do
Yeah.
different things. But for me, like more importantly, I can hire somebody to manage it for me. I can have a workforce of agents that I can have somebody to build
Yep.
and manage and do all of this stuff. And if I want, I can basically be the owner of an agent workforce. Is that what's going on?
Yes. Yeah. So let me break it down for you because actually you touched on like a variety of very interesting things which I want to look into before we go deep into the details of how it's all going to play out over the next couple of weeks and months. You said that the thesis of just singular AI agents is not going to last, and I think that's true because if you look at how these AI agents perform, they're really good if they have like two tools, maybe three tools. And if they go beyond that, if you start to like loading them up with a lot of different tasks and you want to make them um, a complex agent that is able to, like 1 minute, like advise you about what is the fastest route to take to work, and then the second, like minute you want him to tell you about the latest meme coins in the market or whatever. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And that's what people want, right? You want, a central point of, like a swarm, for example. It has a lot of agents in it that have a certain purpose. And, your operator, which is the agent that you talk to, is basically the one that decides who's going to do the work, right? So,
Hmm.
from a practical perspective, and one thing that I stand by is that like Swarm Network is not just the agents that are built on top of our framework, but if you're building on ELIZA, if you're building OpenAI, if you're building whatever AutoGen, it doesn't matter. Like you can just hook them up. So why is that important? Is because you were talking about the role of blockchain for AI, and I think that the definition you're trying to seek is protocol, right? You can compare this protocol or any protocol like Swarm Network or Bitcoin or Ethereum as a set of rules that we abide by that create a sustainable, safe, and transparent environment through which we can exchange information, whether that is in the form of assets or whether that's in the form of arbitrary data. It doesn't really matter. But it's safe and it's transparent and it's imbued with the cultural elements that we as humans care about. And I want to put that into contrast. I want to go back all the way into let's say, the 90s. Um, when first TCP/IP came around, because TCP/IP, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's like the fundamental protocol that allows us to have an identity on the internet and talk with each other, right? That's not owned by anybody. We're all using that, whether you're in the other side of the world or whether you're just like sitting right next to each other. This protocol is a fundamental building block of our way of communicating online. What it did, it allowed us to exchange information freely, obviously not just by itself, but there was another subset of protocols that allowed this to happen. And I think now we arrived at a point in time where we require another protocol that is going to make sure that these beings, right, AI agents, can communicate with each other, but ultimately can serve us, right? So not to erase humans out of the mix, but actually make the whole environment pro-human, if you will, and really serve us. And also be able to allow it to scale without the requirement or without the active participation of any central authority that is having to oversee what's happening on these types of networks, right? Because like TCP/IP, it's like we can connect anywhere, anytime, doesn't matter. The same should be true for AI agents and swarms, but there has to be, a certain set of rules that we abide by. So hence, I think Swarm Network and our AI agent framework, but also our Truth Protocol, could potentially become one of those fundamental protocols. Yeah, that's the first thing I wanted to say. And then the latter part of your question is like, how do you get involved? Is okay, you buy an agent license. That agent license allows you to operate a swarm. you can enlist through our application that we're going to launch in 2025. You can enlist agents wherever they come from. There will be many of them, or you can build them by yourself with no code tools. And you can group them into a unit, like small or big, it doesn't matter whether it's 3, 5, 10, 100, or 1,000 agents, depends on how complex you want to make it. And you can start to service a protocol, for example, the truth protocol that we created that takes care of verifying arbitrary data and putting it on chain, or any other type of blockchain or protocol that requires a certain set of services. So, we put a lot of effort in building out the first use case that has a proper business model that the swarms that do enlist themselves can actually earn. But beyond that, there's a lot of different types of applications and use cases.
Okay, so I love that, man. There's a thousand things I want to touch on, but again, just to reiterate, it's like you're building the rails that swarms of agents can communicate on. You're also building the way for us to easily build agents. You're building the way for
Yeah,
us to, for somebody like me to own a swarm of agents and have somebody else manage them, or I can license
yeah,
out my agents. You're basically creating the framework for me to be able to kind of interact with this world, but then to know that these
yeah,
agents aren't just off, they're not the agents from the Matrix going off and like creating crazy
yeah,
chaos. There's like, we've set rails kind of boundaries around it so that they don't take over the world.
yeah,
But in a way, it's
yeah,
also then it's a way to allow them to take over different functionalities, communicate with each other, work things out, even communicate with other agents. Because like the future that you imagine is like
yeah,
I have my agents set like I always imagine I have a personal assistant agent, then I have a bunch of like sim
yeah,
agents that figure out decision making for me. Like we have this project we have FarmSand. We need the verifiability of data that's produced in the farms to be verified in a way
mm,
that we can say, okay, this isn't a human saying this is true. This is a kind of a set standard intelligence that's saying this is true. Therefore, it's immutable, right? Or it's a
mm,
business where
yeah,
you have multiple different functionalities all being run together. So it's building the rails and allowing us to interact with the agents, or it's just owning the like it's like owning a piece of the internet or owning a piece of crypto, right?
yeah, yeah,
So one
yeah,
piece I want to touch
correct.
on is okay. So you have the Google models. You guys got the grant from Google, and you have the Google models hooked
Yeah,
up. Can I only use the Google models, or can it be any models? Because I think you touched on OpenAI and everybody else.
yeah. It can be any model, right? So we are not a model provider, right? We don't care where the work is done. What we care about is whether the work that you are doing as an agent or you're doing as a swarm can be verified, right? So, hence, like this interoperability aspect is really important, and that's why you need a protocol to be able to verify essentially whether the work that you've done is done by A, who you said it's done by, and according to the parameters that you said it's done with, and according to whatever, if you provide data points or something like that, like the data points have to have a transparent origin and this kind of stuff. So it's more like, okay, how can you make the process transparent and trustable instead of saying, okay, we want to put everything on chain? Because I think there's a dream in crypto, and I don't know where it came from, but people are just assuming that you can put AI on chain. But fundamentally, that's not really possible. You cannot put a large language model on chain. It's
Hmm.
not possible. Yeah. So
Right.
we
So
allow,
so
whatever.
so what you're putting on chain is basically the rails where they communicate. There's infinitely upgradable models that can be kind of connected to it, and as those scale
Yeah.
and upgrade and become more intelligent, that all upgrades. The rails
Yeah.
themselves, I'm sure
Yeah.
that you'll upgrade along the way. Okay, so before we keep going down this rabbit hole, one thing, honestly, the
Mhm.
way that I look at projects is I actually look at the founders, right? And I check into their
Yeah.
background. Firstly, want to see, are they NFT faces or are they actual faces? Which, congratulations, you guys have real faces. I did not know people all only have NFT faces these days. But secondly, it's the
Yeah.
experience, right? Because my rule is If the founders have taken a company from ideation to execution to exit, then they know the full life cycle of a
Yeah.
project. Because it's a fact that
Yeah.
90% of startups fail, and out of the 10% that survive, 90% are built by founders that have built a successful startup before. So I would love for
Yeah.
you to just touch on, okay, well, what was your previous experience, especially in this framework of, projects that you've been on, that you've
Yeah.
taken to completion, that then led to this idea?
Yeah. Yeah. So the previous project that I was involved with on co-founder level is called Delicium, AGI. Went through a very wild ride. Ended up pivoting the company. Then from literally the abyss, essentially, bringing it back up to around 2.5 billion FTV at a certain point in time. Was responsible for major partnerships with Google, Microsoft, and some other larger corporations. So that process, and some of our co-founders are from there as well. One of the co-founders is also ex-co-founder of the same company and also ex-co-founder of RCT AI, which is the company that um, is an AI company that essentially incubated the previous company. And our CTO was also part of that same journey. And then our other two co-founders, they are running an incubator, and through their incubations and close contact with all these projects, also in the AI space, they also generally have this very well-developed understanding of how do you bring an asset to market, how do you make sure that there's volumes there, and just like the whole mix is there really. So yeah, it's I feel blessed, man, because I don't like to compare myself to other people, but sometimes I meet people that have really great ideas and they start blockchain projects and they think it's just, really simple and
Yeah.
everything is straightforward, but it's not, man. It's like the world in blockchain is upside down, man. It's like it's just different. So I'm blessed that like our entire team has gone through the experience of building a successful enterprise level company because we employed more than 210 people. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
and
and
just to add to that, sorry, continue.
the team that yeah, sorry, the team that I brought with me, they are our employees or current employees. A bunch of them are actually ex-employees of that company because when me and the co-founder left, they were like, hey, if you leave, then we leave and we want to join you. So that was a surprise because I was like, okay, you guess you don't have to leave. I'm not asking you to take you have a nice position, get a nice salary, but no, we want to follow you guys and do this thing with you. And that's when we started, we just hit the ground running. It was very yeah, very empowering in a sense.
I love that. So you're basically the Sam Altman of Delicium, where like you walk out and everybody's like, "I'm going with you." Okay, like you don't have a Microsoft behind you.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also, what you just said is like, an idea is a dime a dozen, right? But and if you just have the AI side, okay. If you just have the blockchain side, okay. But the company execution, the exchanges, the community management, there's just so many verticals that you have to focus on in a project. And if you don't have the right expertise and especially the experience of having gone through that was the other thing. When I saw the deck, I was like, I like this balance, right? You have clear expertise
Mhm.
and clear different channels, and clearly all of you have done this before. So that got me a green check mark. But you know what really got me
Mhm.
interested was you guys like made it super complicated for anybody to even participate. Like you had to like hack into the just couldn't, right? Luckily you contacted
Yeah.
me because there's no way I was going to go in there and find codes and stuff like that. So I'd love to hear why you did
Yeah.
that. Firstly, that's intriguing because good projects they don't go out begging
Yeah.
for money, right? They actually block you from getting money.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear
Yeah.
your kind of journey around that.
Yeah, I got kind of like turned off by the current state of affairs in crypto. Um, because it's just like it's like a farm, man. It's like a farm with a lot of hens and chickens, and they're just like blah 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 blah, and nobody is there to contribute. They're all there to extract, right?
Hmm.
Like that's the case for a lot of the projects, okay? Like if you see like, like hundreds of thousands of people just talking nonsense in group chats, it means that there's something to be gained,
Hmm.
and they will be there for, a certain period of time. They get their whatever $20 worth of airdrop and they disappear. And the project is left with literally nothing, right? Because your community is really what builds the network, right? Because we're working on blockchain. We want this decentralized distribution. We want decentralized governance. We want decentralized involvement. I'm not here to build a company by myself and do all this crazy stuff and become like, the hero of the story and, hire like a gazillion people. I much rather have the infrastructure there, the tools there, and then work with the community and work with the people that are actually really, really interested and stand behind our mission and our vision and really resonate with the cultural values that we imbue our community and our project with and really contribute. And then actually go and out and invest in these people for them to build their own swarms. So you cannot get that when you make things too easy. It's like, how do you filter people really, right? So I was
Yeah.
like, look, we need to create some kind of like a filter. If you're really interested in this thing, go and figure out how you get in. You need to go to the CLI, which is like our interface, which is a white paper, it's an experience. It's not easy to navigate, so you have to go through it, you have to read it, and then eventually you get to a point where it's like, okay, oh, you want to become part of the community, the alpha community, then you can tag this, Twitter account, and then you can receive your code, but then you need to take that code, you need to bring it back, and you need to like decode it, and then you get pieces of your link, and then after a few tries, you get your full link, and then you can join the community. But once you're
Yeah.
in, you're part of it, right? Like I have a channel of communication with you, my team has a channel of communication with you, and immediately there's kind of like a good relationship between us and the people that joined. And I think that's just the most important thing, man. It's like if you come to me with an awesome idea to build a swarm and we have the tools for you ready, then I'd much rather have you build it than myself.
I love that. I love that. And the other thing is, in that whole journey, you're kind of you're flipping things on its head, and I know you're kind of trying to say this in other words. I'll say it like this: you're trying to keep the shitheads out of the community, because building a community is very difficult. It's okay. This is
Yeah.
Discord, RV Discord. We're allowed to curse. Okay, we even curse on the platform. It's fine, but
Okay.
it is building a community isn't just about having numbers, right? Building a community, I'd rather have 100
Yeah.
really activated, dedicated people that are actually doing something good for humanity, rather than 100,000 people
Yeah.
who are, just playing the extractive game. And for a project like this that has the
Yeah.
potential to add that much value, and technically an infinite amount of value, because you can build an infinite number of agents doing an infinite number of things. That's where the world is headed. I
Mhm.
think it's I love that you actually created the gate, and that's also why I was like, okay, I can see where you're going with this, and I can see you need to come to the Real Vision Discord, because this is one of those communities. This is like a safe
Nice.
haven for us, right? I don't go on Twitter like I'm supposed to be some kind of
Yeah.
influencer. I'm like, no, thank you. This is the place where you have amazing
Yeah.
people, really dedicated, really on the mission. Also with a kind of not just here to like pump and dump things. Some of us, I mean, the DJing channel is going nuts, but
Yeah.
in general, everybody's here for kind of a long-term perspective, and that's where Raul's been instrumental in
Mhm.
kind of guiding the community towards thinking long-term and thinking how not to fuck it up. But the
Mhm.
conversations around, okay, right now most of the models are that, and to find these kind of new models
Yeah.
is amazing. So now, what I'd also love to learn about is, okay, you chose Sui for your blockchain,
Yeah.
and we are Sui lovers here, because at this point, like Raul's on the
Thanks.
board, and our community really, really stands behind the project. So I'd love to hear what was the decision-making process around you choosing Sui. If you can give us some secret alpha, that would be, you get a golden star for that.
Yeah. Sui, their language is just good to use in general because it's very composable.
Mm.
It's very fast. They build out certain solutions which takes other chains a really long time to build. They're kind of this underdog in terms of how many people are there, what they're building, what the average fully diluted value of the projects are. There's a lot of DeFi going on, but not that much really, like fundamental project. So I think it's a good space to be in general. Plus, the foundation people are really nice people. They want what is best for their chain. And I think that's really important because in the end, they are really instrumental in building the community, right? So I think that's just I like to think that I'm a very good person. I
You
don't
seem like
need
a great
meat.
guy, man. To be
I
honest, you seem like a really great guy. To be honest.
thanks for that. You too. Right. So I don't need meat. I try and be as good as I can to my family and to my company and to my employees and to my friends and share as much as I can. And I just want to be around people that resonate with me in that way. And sweet people are just that kind of people.
And would you say that they've also really focused on making their chain like decentralized and kind of fair, the same kind of fairness that you're looking at in Swarm Network? Seems like that's also there, and it makes sense that it's also nice people working on it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. They just overall did a really great job. Like the way they build it up. Like compared to Blast, for example. Where's Blast now? Right? All the hype, all the craziness, there's nothing there. It's
Mm.
like that. It was dead on arrival. It's just like had its moment for like whatever, 3 weeks or something. Um, so different mentality, right? That's the most important, and that is embodied within the decentralization of the network. Anybody can run nodes there, and it's just, yeah, it's just overall good setup for a chain. Um, no problems, man. Like on technical level, like I've built on Polygon before. Holy shit, like
Yeah,
RPCs
me
just
too.
don't interface with Chrome and like, whoa, it was horrible, man. It's like just a bad experience overall. And this time we built, like whatever we're building, and it's always like, okay, yes, the documentation is maybe not always there, and it's a little bit segregated in terms of like where you can get your information from, but like it's easy to figure out, man. It's like we haven't had no major setbacks. And then I also like the mentality of like Miston Labs, for example. They're just now focusing on building other protocols on top of SUI that are these fundamental things that you need. Like this, the one of them is called Will, which is like IPFS, but then like on SUI, which is good. Yeah.
You lost me. You lost me in the acronym. That sounds like what IPFS screens or something. I don't know what does that mean.
It's like a larger file storage on the blockchain.
Ah, okay,
It's like
okay,
because like
cool.
SUI is limited to 2 MB for one pack for one packet.
Yeah.
So sometimes you want to store something larger, right? So let's say like you make a case you're using the swarm and you want to store like a piece of evidence that's maybe like a video file or something like that, then you probably need to store it somewhere that allows you to do that.
Okay, so that brings up a good question. That okay, so Swarm Network is going to then allow my agents to have file storage and web hosting and all the kind of functionalities that are being built around in the infrastructure that's being built, especially in the deep in space.
Yeah,
All of that will connect up seamlessly. So effectively, the agents are going to have their own internet, Web3 internet that they can use through the
yeah,
infrastructure and share value.
yeah. One of our core values is just this interoperability, right? It's like, okay, are you going to build an isolated, um, let's say dApp, and you just
Mm.
expect everybody to come to your dApp and just only use the tools that you provide there? Yes, okay, you can capture value, you can keep people in, you can control them more, and so on. But I mean, what do you get out of it? Right? It's like I don't see a long-term benefit, and we're humans, we're optimizing for the whole. right? You and I you are optimizing for the group of people that we're talking to right now. I am optimizing for the group of people that we're talking to. And this group of people is part of a larger group of people. There's always a system that we're optimizing for, and it just extrapolates, right? You can go out and out and out. So what are you doing if you're not making it more connected, right? It's like, why, like I see these people, they're like, I'm not going to drop names, but there's these foundations that they're like, okay, we're going to build this
Come on,
thing,
drop the names, drop the
and then,
names,
okay,
drop the
now we
names.
want to nah, want to extract
Just kidding.
value on that thing, and we're gonna build another app, and like you can
Yeah,
only use this one because that's our preferred choice. Like that's not fucking blockchain ethos, man. Well, I said fuck the first time. Um,
yeah,
that's not the ethos. That's not what this industry was built on. It's like no, no.
yeah, exactly. So, okay, I love this. So, I think this is the moment I want to ask you a deep question, okay? What do
I
you burn for?
What do I burn for?
Yeah, like what is the core thing that's lighting the fire that's driving you to do this? Because you know you're a deep thinker
Yeah,
about truth, and I feel like you're driven around truth, and there's something there that society has become this kind of the
yeah,
verifiability of truth and that kind of honor that we used to have around just fucking truth, So like, I
yeah.
now I'm goading you into a question, but
I-
what do you burn for?
So we humans, we observe the world through two lenses. And some people are really good at the lens of objectivity, right? Like actually perceiving the world um, in a factual manner. And that can be really difficult because we are by nature are very subjective beings. Like our core is very emotionally driven. If you think about our peripheral vision, for example, if something is outside of your field of focus, if it's moving fast, your mind doesn't have time to say like, hey, what is this thing? Should I be scared of it? No, if a car is coming your way and it's too close, you'll jump. Like we are reactive and responsive, but in the digital age that we're living in right now, we're allowing that experience, that reactive experience, to pull us into a very subjective personal reality, which very quickly becomes an echo chamber, and you very quickly start to try and find people that kind of like enforce your ideas and not challenge you, and we're all really warm and cozy in our kind of like spheres and spaces, but it's very unhealthy in a sense, and like if you look, for example, at how much we rely on technology that is centralized, let's say Google, for example. Now with AI, we're breaking free a little bit, but like they manipulate. Like
Hmm.
take the presidential elections just now. You were Googling Kamala Harris, everything was positive. You were Googling
Hmm.
Trump, everything was negative. But eventually the people chose to let the truth speak for itself. And I think that's very important. But most of us don't have the luxury or don't have the time to be able to figure out what the truth is. I will tell you something very personal. Sometimes I speak to my mom
Hmm.
about politics, and my mom has very, um, she's a very, uh, she's very influenced by the left-leaning politics. And I try to be very objective and very neutral. But I always get pulled into some kind of struggle, like proving each other wrong or right, which is happening all the time around us. But those
Story of my
conversations are
life.
not driven by facts. Bro, those conversations online especially, they're not driven by facts. They're driven by what people read or hear from other people, and that's not objective truth. And we don't have a means to our disposal to be able to easily verify this. So the first swarm that we built on top of the truth protocol is actually doing exactly this on X, on Twitter. So you can find a thread, and if you want to verify what's in their thread, it works best on threads right now, but we'll release a second version that you can just parse links and everything. But for now, it's threads. So you find a thread, you want to fact check it, you tag at rollup lower dash news and you write rollup in the comment. And then that initial swarm that we built starts to follow the rules of the protocol and verify the information which is presented to you in a thread. It returns you a rollup, or we call it an information rollup, where the entire information is dissected, sorted into claims, and you can see what's true and what's not true based off what sources of information or data and so on. So it's just a very quick and easy way, like you don't have to do anything. It's almost passive. It's like, hey, I want to know if this is true. Show me you know, what you have to say about this as the network. And you can then have trust in the process that we follow because we follow a protocol that's transparent and there's rules to it and there's reputation and there's people that have stake in the outcome of these verifications and so on. So I think that's what really drives me at the moment because sometimes I'm just flabbergasted by how ridiculous people seem to behave online and just like flame each other and take like a piece of information. Like, what you see a lot is like we are having a conversation.
Yep.
I say one thing, it's like five words. You cut that piece up, you put it online, and it means something completely different.
Hmm.
It's like like maybe like one that specific part of that conversation is like I'm saying something like against somebody else or something like that, and they blow it up. But the entire context of that whole conversation is gone. But when
Yep.
you see that, what are you gonna do? You're gonna go and try and like sift through like a 2 hour conversation and try and find the piece and understand the entirety of the context. You don't have time for that. You just
No,
want to like
you're
get it,
just gonna
right?
cancel Yannick. You're just gonna be like, you know what? Yeah, I saw
Yeah,
him say
yeah.
this
You're
one,
just
because I say
exactly.
ridiculous shit all the time, right? To the point where I can't even cut my long form videos into shorts anymore because if I just hear myself say this thing that I say sarcastically as a joke, where my people know me, and now RV community knows me, and they know like, hey, he's eccentric. He says shit, but when if you read through his
Yeah,
entire thesis and framework, you have a deeper understanding. But so okay, so this is an interesting point that I wanted to touch on. That like the roll up AI, right? In my simple mind,
yeah,
I'm like, okay, that's an AI agent doing some work. But you said it's a swarm working to verify the truth. So let's
yeah.
take that as an example. Take me through what's the swarm doing? Is it multiple agents talking to each other? Are they arguing? Like, is one mom and one's you? And like, how'd you do it?
Yeah. So first of all, this is just us building a practical use case to show everybody what's possible. Okay. So this swarm employs 100 different agents. Those agents are subdivided into different teams. Each
Hmm.
team has a certain responsibility, and each agent within that team has access to a certain subset of tools. So
Okay.
I can explain you the whole process, but I'm going to try and simplify it because there's too many steps. But
Yep.
the first step is you take information, you send it to the team. So there's an operator, which is the rollup lower dash news on Twitter, which is an agent in
Hmm.
itself, which takes the claim, structures the data, sends it to the first team that is responsible for extracting all the claims. So that team extracts all the claims, puts it in a certain JSON format, sends it to the next team. The next team turns those claims into atomic claims, which are the smallest variable units of those instances of those claims. And then they
Okay.
send it off to another operator, which is going to then decide, or not really decide, he's going to look at each of those pieces of claims that have to be verified. What kind of information would be required to verify this information claim, and then find the team of agents that potentially, not always, potentially has access to the correct information, send that claim off to that team. That team then does its thing. Like each team is different. Some have like access to just like basic search functionality. Some have access to Reddit. Some have access to Twitter. Some have access to Google's fact checking platform, which is not very reliable, but we want to compare things to each other. We cannot just assume that if there's a hit on a certain, like statement that it's true. No, you need to gather a lot of different insights of information. And then there's another swarm, which is purely um, there for consensus forming. So now this swarm has done its thing of gathering all
Right.
information,
Yeah.
presenting, hey, this claim has these data points, and these data points say this and this and this and this about this claim. Now form consensus. So each individual agent has a different model, a different type of a decision-making framework, a different types of field of expertise, and they have arguments with each other to find consensus. And if they among themselves in three-third, so three-third of the network has to find consensus. If they find consensus, then the state of a claim is
Wait a
propagated.
minute. Wait. Sorry. Did you say three
So
thirds of the swarm has to find consult? Isn't that
uh,
100%?
two-thirds, two-thirds,
Two
sorry,
thirds. Okay.
two-thirds,
Yeah.
two-thirds.
I thought I was just messing up my
My
math
bad,
for
my
a
bad.
second. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. Two-thirds, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. And then ultimately claim is propagated. But that's not the end all. If that claim then eventually is contested again, the whole process start again. So if
Whoa.
in a certain case that there is like, an issue with the claim, you as a human, not in this version, but the version we're about to release, you can go in, you can provide additional information, and the entire inference for that specific claim runs again. But also, even if you roll up, let's say like, okay, let's say like we have a claim that you ate the apple. Now
Hmm.
we have sufficient evidence that you ate the apple, okay? Like for the time being, because like we have a video of you eating the apple, right? So,
Hmm.
okay, claim is stated with a certain degree um of um of certainty or certain sentiment around the certainty. There's a score, there's a truthfulness score that is generated mathematically. So let's say like we are like 0.88 score sure that you ate the apple. Why are we
Hmm.
0.88 sure that you ate the apple? Because we saw you ate the apple on video, but nobody really saw you ate the apple. And then 3 weeks later, there's another video of somebody that was in the room with you that saw you switch your apple with another apple, but you actually ate a different apple. And he now presents that information. That means that the original claim has to be reevaluated and changed, right? So it is a dynamic system, you see? So that's why the scale really matters. The
Whoa,
more people
man.
that use this, the more smarter it becomes over time.
Okay, dude, that's mind blowing. And now I get why you need a swarm of agents. Because yeah, if it's just like I go to ChatGPT and I say, "Is this true?" I know which things it's going to tell me. I know what kind of bias it has.
Yeah,
I'm checking four different places, but those models are trained a certain way.
yeah.
Okay, so this is mind blowing next level stuff. Okay, so now considering this way of structuring agents that have this cloud of kind of information flow and value being generated between them. In the simplest way, can you explain to us
Mhm.
like where's the money coming from? Because my questions are always like, where's the money coming from, and what does it do for humanity? Like if you can answer those two together, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I love this question, man, because that's the question nobody ever asks when they invest in the project, right? They just ask the question like how high can this pump? But
Hmm.
substantially, you have to generate value. So where does the money come from? The money comes from the so it depends on the context, okay? But let's talk about the context of the truth protocol and this agent swarm in particular.
Hmm.
The value accrues where the interest and let's say the value of information is increased depending on the environment. So let's say if it's a political environment and there's not enough information on a certain subject, then there's a incentive that is generated for uncovering such a piece of information, right? So let's say like you want to solve your case, right?
Hmm.
You are suing somebody on the premise that they stole your apple, but you don't have evidence that they stole your apple other than you knowing that they stole your apple, right? Now you need to go out and find evidence. You need to find other people or some footage or whatever to,
Hmm.
like verify to be able to confirm that that person indeed stole your apple. That's how value is created. But this is an extreme case, and this is obviously not practical. But online, the same process happens, right? So there are different types of markets that can be created based off the information that we're handling. The first one is prediction markets. hyperdynamic prediction markets. If you want to uncover a piece of information, or if you want to gather information on a certain outcome of an event in the future that is highly dependent on the current context, um, in terms of, you know, uh, maybe, I don't know, the price of oranges or some shit like that in an area, but you don't have access to that information, then you can generate value for that information through markets. That's the first one. Then the second one is potential bounty markets where there's like, like, okay, I want to be able to verify this thing, which is hard to verify. I'm able to pay a certain amount of money for this. Those are two examples. Third example is actually, um, if now I am building a D app based off the
Mm,
information that we are propagating and bringing online. So basically, what we're saying is, hey, we have arbitrary data in the world. We can take that data for you and we can bring it on chain and we can verify it, and you can build smart contract logic on that. But every time that you require verification of a certain piece of information, you shall pay us, right? So network fees, essentially, right? So
mm,
each claim has a individual value, and that value is then either paid for through a market model or through a business relationship. And I can tell you that information and media is one of the biggest businesses in the world. It's just
for
that we
sure.
as individuals don't really have access to it, right? There's a lot at stake, there's a lot of things going on, but that value is not shared among its users. It's confined within the bank accounts of the people that own the networks. And I think that can change, right? So let's say one of the big issues that it can solve is like community nodes, like now all of a sudden there's a reward mechanism where you can earn for verifying stuff on social medias and so on. And funny enough, if you look at statements that Mark Zuckerberg and Meta are making, is that they're saying that they're going to increasingly rely on the verification of their content on their platforms through third-party services because they cannot handle it. How are you gonna? There's 3.2 billion or whatever crazy amount of people on Facebook. It's like, how are you gonna moderate those people? It's like you're gonna have to hire like a billion people.
Yeah, and then you bring in a trillion AIs that start interacting with it, and it all becomes complicated. So I love that. So that was just the amount of value that the truth protocol generates. Then if you look at like,
Yes, yes,
like
true.
so for somebody like me, if I can build swarms, it adds value to me to as a business. So I'm going to buy as many, agents as I need to build my swarm. Then there's a guy who's going to program them
Yeah,
for me. So he's adding value. So I'll pay him so he can pay into the network. Then
yeah,
there's, somebody who can lease
yeah,
it for something. And then there's all the infinite different,
yeah,
it's almost like, it's like a completely new internet being built. Now we're cycling back to the whole thing that this is like the AI
yeah,
internet that is almost that's it's not on screens. It's an intelligence internet that's being built, and it has infinite ways
yeah,
of actually adding value to people's lives. Which just like with the internet, we could have never imagined how much stuff it was going to do for humanity. All of that is kind of
yeah.
encompassed inside of this thing. Yeah.
Let me tell you something really exciting too. You can launch a token for your swarm. You create a swarm that adds value to the world. You want to now maybe sell it or you want to um, allow it to grow, you can launch an asset for that swarm, which is basically a governance asset. So you can say like, hey, look, we're doing this amazing thing. We're making money over here. We have a bunch of people that we are servicing, but we want to push this to the next level. Let's launch an asset for a swarm, right? Like you're saying, it's
Hmm.
essentially you're going IPO with your swarm, right? It's like you're going IPO with your business or ICO or whatever.
That's hurting my brain at this point.
Why?
I mean that's it's just it's layer cakes of value because it's like I have a token,
Yeah,
I have an agent that gives me, let's say, rewards for tokens. We'll get to that in a second. And then it can add value.
yeah,
It can add so much value that it can have its own token. I mean, already we're seeing like Goatius Maximus as kind of the first example of an AI agent basically taking
yeah.
over a token. But this is completely different. This is like if I have a business and this
The
business
swarm.
through the
Yeah.
swarm actually adds so much value, I can then tokenize my swarm, and somebody else can be part of
Yes.
that process. That's
Yes.
next.
And you can,
That's like Web 3.3. It's like two layers of Web 3.
yeah, and you can accrue value for that asset through having certain mechanism in place, such as let's say like, okay, like our swarm has capacity only for the best agents because we are making good revenue servicing. Okay, let's take the roll-up news, yeah? Let's take roll-up news for example. Like I can let me just get I just pull up the metrics real quick, but I think like for example, yesterday it was like 41,000 articles were scanned or were propagated and were used for verification. Let me just get the numbers correctly. So yeah, so there were like 11,942 arguments. There were claims, sorry, and there were 44,150 tweets processed. There were in total 21,541 articles reviewed. Within those articles and those claims, there were like 100,000 tags discovered, right? So you want the agents that are the most efficient, the best, and the most trustworthy. Their servers has to be up all the time because they're like they're decentralized. If your agent is on maintenance or you just like didn't pay your bill for the model that you're running or you just turned off your computer if you're running it locally, like we cannot inference you. So, okay, you can use that asset to create a mechanism for, first of all, you need to hold a certain amount of asset to be part of the swarm and be able to catch the value, right, the revenue. And then, like that asset, you stake it, and if you act badly, then you'll be slashed, right? So it's also a mechanism for added security and allows you to um, instead of having to manage, whoever is operating that agent, you just create a mechanism which is basically like a proof of stake function for these agents to just do what the fuck they're supposed to do and do it good.
Hmm.
And if you're not, then like you'll be replaced because there will be somebody else that can do a better job and does have the confidence in his own ability to build better agents and replace your agents and grab your share.
Okay, so that's perfect. That's a perfect segue into the next piece. Okay, let's imagine I'm me because I am me. So I want to
Mhm.
I want to find the best agent. I'm lazy because I'm busy. Well,
Yeah,
I'm too
yeah,
busy to even care. I want to have somebody to build my stuff for me. I want to use it I use the
yeah,
agents as an investment vehicle. So it's like, how would I do
yeah,
that? Like right now, in my mind, I would
yeah,
be like, okay, I buy a bunch of agent licenses. Okay, I own the agent licenses. I hire somebody to do it on the Biddle network, Biddle platform, and they can build
yeah.
it for me. And then there's a marketplace where I can then, I mean, I could sell my agents, but can I also find the best agents, or is it an automated process that
Yeah.
actually automatically finds me the best agents? Like, what does that? What does my life look like in this process?
So automation is the key here, and of course we can only build so fast, right? There's so many things that we want to build. So the first version of this is just going to be an open marketplace where people can solicit their services, but also request services and solicit their swarms and request agents for their swarm and do the general management of this thing, right? So you can say like, hey, look, I'm building a swarm for this purpose. Here's the statement of the purpose. AI will automatically kind of generate a plan for you, kind of like what kind of agents you would need. And then you can say, if you build these agents, we can use my license to launch the swarm. And then eventually we'll launch an asset and you can get a certain percentage of that asset, perhaps. Or you get a certain percentage of the revenue share. So you basically present the deal on the platform and then you just allow people to apply their agents to it, right? So, and then again, the interoperability here is interesting because, wherever you've built that agent, as long as you connect it through the communication, um, um, you know, standards that we've set, you can just join a swarm. You don't have to, like, people don't have to build it on Agent Builder. It's just we want to make it easier because right now to build an agent, it's like a little bit complicated. It's
Yeah.
not super straightforward. Nobody understands best practices. A lot of it has to do with prompting, and people don't know how to prompt. So we want to make those initial steps as easy as possible, so that people can at least get set up. And we're gonna have templates too. So it's like, okay, like you want to service the truth protocol, here's an agent swarm that you could just like copy pasta and you can recruit agents and we can scale it that way. So there will be options, but I don't want to limit the creativity of the people that actually want to innovate on top of the platform. So we will have grants as well, so these community grants, and we will also have certain hackathons and events for trying to kind of scope out what kind of talent we have within the community and try and get those people to build, the next wave of swarms. And then naturally, you'll be able to kind of like create a path forward for people.
Hmm.
It's like, hey, maybe build in this direction because a bunch of talented people are doing that. And, like you just click here and spin up your agent and add it to the swarm. And then you ask Sim if you can use his license to launch the asset, and Sim gets paid for that. And, everybody's happy.
So when I'm buying a license, am I buying the license to one agent or am I buying the license to a swarm? Like, what? How does that work?
You're buying the right to own and launch a swarm. And the swarms, um, they are valuable and they have to be scarce because we have to enforce the reputation. So basically, you are becoming an owner of the platform that is able to allow us and help us with quality control and direction. Right. So you say, hey, like for Swarm to exist, he needs an agent license. I'm an agent license holder. We just strike a deal. And then obviously you can also build your own agents if you want to build a Swarm completely built by yourself, then that's also an option. But I think the exciting thing is that you become a key for other people to access, the juice.
Okay, so
People
so
need
so
you.
I yeah, like what? So when I buy an agent, a license, which is a node effectively, that license is a
Yeah,
license to create a swarm of agents that serve a functionality that I can either build
yeah,
myself through these tools, or I can
yeah,
license it out to somebody else who needs it, or I can hire somebody to build it for me and kind of manage and profit share for me. Okay, that makes
yeah.
perfect sense. Okay, so and we're going to go through all these questions, but man, this conversation is, first of all, wow, I'm loving this conversation. I have a few more questions. We got questions in the chat. We're going to go through all this stuff. Okay, so now,
Mhm,
what does your project roadmap look like? Like, what are we looking at as let's say 2025,
mhm.
2026?
Yeah, we have an exciting roadmap. So the first thing is the agent license sale, which is going to commence on the 27th. That's going to be kind of like the kickoff, really. Then shortly after that, we're going to launch the second version, and we're going to make the Truth Protocol more accessible to other people and the roll-up news. Then after that, a little bit later I believe it's now scheduled for the second quarter, is the first version of Agent Builder, where you can launch agents and launch swarms and do the basic management and solicitation of these agents and so on. And then third quarter is more focused on marketplace and kind of generally updating the the UI UX experience for users that don't have coding experience. Because the
Hmm.
most important thing for me is that I want to be able to get people there that like not necessarily need to be developers, like we need this thing to grow on all fronts, and I think accessibility is usually a tough thing in blockchain, like go and run a
Hmm.
node. Like you need technical experience for that. Go and run an agent. Nowadays, it's rather complex to build something like rollup news. It's not just all straightforward, drag and drop, but it's how it should be.
Hmm.
I just think that people haven't sufficiently focused on it because I think just in general, man, like agent swarms are kind of underrated of what they can do is because people don't spend enough time on actually building them. Yeah.
And right now, like we until you explained how a swarm can go out and find the truth, my mind couldn't even understand what the difference was between one agent doing it and a swarm of agents doing it. But when you explain it like that, I'm
Yeah.
like, of course. Like, if I'm gonna verify the
Yeah.
truth, I'm not just gonna have my friend and go, hey, is this true? And he goes and Googles something and goes, yeah,
Yeah.
it's true or not, right? I'm gonna have a whole team of
Yeah.
people and research, and they're going to look into things, and they're going to argue and talk, and they're going to run loops around the thing to actually kind of come to a consensus to
Yeah.
make it happen. That model of just doing something, as straightforward, that seems straightforward as finding the truth, makes sense now. So I think a lot of people have just conceptualizing how
Mm.
to build the agents is just a whole different world. People are just barely getting to how to even use
Mm.
ChatGPT. It looks like a web search to people,
Yeah.
let alone a swarm of them, let alone the complex interactions between them, let alone then the layer cake of there's a completely new internet being built with agents being able to, or swarms being able to use all the infrastructure that exists to then add value and then launch tokens. Like, people are
Yeah.
like, man, I have kids and I have a job. So like, I feel like I'm just happy with the fake news that we have out there, right? So, so okay, so then what does my life look like now, right? So it's like, okay, on the 27th, the pre-sale goes live, right? If I
Yeah.
understand correctly, I have a link because thank you for selecting me. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. I feel special. I have a
No
link
problem.
and I share it with the community. They get access to this pre-sale
Yeah.
because of that. Whoever buys an
Yeah.
agent license is getting the license itself. There's 12,000 licenses that are being sold for $1,000, and then the prices go up. But there's some like
Yep.
tokens being given as rewards or something. That part was a little confusing to me.
Yes. Yeah. So we see our agent license holders as important um, vehicles for us to decentralize and distribute the network. So 30% of the total token supply is allocated to agent license holders, and you will be earning that right from the get-go. So if you buy it, you will immediately start accruing those tokens. It's a pre-market accrual, so you get the tokens in a dashboard before the token even exists and goes live. So that means that on TGE, you have the potential. There's a withdrawal fee, obviously, but you have the potential to claim those tokens already. And then once the infrastructure becomes available, we will start to ask you, hey, spin up an agent, spin up a swarm, and so on, and you'll be able to access other pools as well. So it's essentially a model for ownership, right? It's like you invest, you get ownership of this whole thing, you accrue value through this token emission system, and then also as an operator of a swarm and as somebody that is just contributing to the network in general, you'll be rewarded. So there's several pools as well. Just wrote an article. We just wrote an article about this on our blog that goes a little bit deeper into how this plays out. But there are essentially operator pools. So because you're an early contributor, you also will be awarded of the activity in general on the platform. So there are certain pools that gather a certain amount of network fees, but also the certain percentage of the assets that are being launched as swarms that go into a pool, and they will also be later on distributed among license holders. So the license itself will over time actually accrue more value because it has access to more different types of kind of like passive income. Obviously, it's not purely
Hmm.
passive. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like we'll ask you to do stuff. Don't worry about that. Like you have to be involved. But
Hmm.
yeah, if you are, then it's probably an interesting opportunity. And I think that it's a contrast of what's happening in the space at the moment. I think it's a kind of like a different opportunity. And we pushed this model with the previous company, and um, that worked out very well for people. I think the average exit was like an 800x.
Yeah. Oh, wait, go back to that again. It was an 800x on the
Yeah,
token launch? What are we talking about here?
it,
When you talk about X's, want to have
yeah,
trauma of having so many X's, but also like in crypto, I like X's. So like, which 800x? What?
yeah. So people they bought so it was called DMAs, and people that hold it they got a very nice exit. Yeah, so
Okay.
it pumped like crazy, and yeah. And like that experience, so this model that we're pushing now is a model that we invented back then and worked very well. But it's a little bit different from other node models. But yeah, I like it because it's fair for people.
Well, okay. So now, if I understand correctly, when let's say I buy a license, right? 27th comes, I
Yeah.
buy 10 licenses for $1,000 each.
Yeah.
And then because I have those licenses, there's a pool of like 1.8 million tokens per day that's being rewarded.
Yeah.
The total number of swarm, the license holders, you divide the tokens by the total number of swarm license holders, and then that gets split up into tokens. And every day those rewards are
Correct.
happening and coming to the people, which is basically
Yeah.
a pre-sale
Correct.
prices. Which also, thank you so much for not just like going and taking $1 billion of VC money and leaving us little guys behind. Instead, you're like bringing the people along and like basically, playing the game the
Yeah.
other way. I really genuinely respect that. That's how I like to play the game as well. So then, whoever kind of comes in early gets these rewards, and then Q2 is the token TGE. Is that right? Or tentatively?
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit. I'm gonna give you a little bit of alpha. The the TG is gonna go a lot faster. It's on the roadmap on Q2, but it will be in Q1. Um,
Amazing.
because we've kind of got it figured out already. We've been building this for a long time, man, and personally, I've advised other projects and helped them go to market as well. And Zero Stage, the founders, they are co-founders of this company as well. So the incubation experience that they have in bringing projects to market really helps. So yeah, we kind of got stuff figured out, and I'm very thankful for that.
Okay, I love that. And then sometime in August is when we're expecting the agent marketplace to go live, which is going to be the place where you can,
Yeah.
sell or lease agents, and then also hire people to be able to kind of, share their talents all into one platform, right?
Yes. Correct. Yes.
Amazing. Okay. Okay. So now I think I have a clear enough understanding of this. Now let's talk about the flip side.
Hmm.
What are all the ways I can lose all my money? It's like, what are the risks? Because we like to have a very balanced perspective here. So it's like genuinely go through, what
Sure.
are you seeing? Because one question that came up that I really love is like, can Google just shut you down? Can Meta just shut you down? Can they block the swarms? Can X shut you down? So I'd love a SWOT analysis of the risks that are out there, because this, in the end, this is a high risk project.
Mm. Um, yeah. I mean, practically, we could be, like maybe like I don't know, X doesn't like us and will start, banning some of our services or something like that. But I don't think that that's a very big problem because um, there's other entry points, into a swarm. It doesn't have to be on X. It's just that we build out the first use case on X. So it could be that maybe you go to the roll-up news, you add your information there, and so on. So there's so many models, right? It's a protocol. So the endpoints into the real world, the apps, the applications that are built on top of it, they can be just very diverse. So to answer that concern is like in theory good, but I don't think that it's an end all. And then how could you lose all your money is obviously if we don't go to market, but
Mm,
our entire team is doxxed and I'm sitting here talking to you. That will not end up, that will not end well for me.
yeah.
So yeah, and then obviously if the market is completely shit and your expectations are not aligned, look, this opportunity is not like a meme coin opportunity. This is a long-term opportunity. You'll be getting these rewards basically, for the next 10 years, right? Every day
Mm,
you'll be able to get these rewards. And um, as the project grows, these things, they will become more valuable and so on. So yeah, if you expect to like, make a quick flip in 5 days, maybe you should invest in meme coins. But if you're willing to give it a little bit of time, a few months at least, and if you're willing to stick with the community and really contribute, then it will just be a net positive for everybody involved.
I love that. Yeah. If you're trying to make a quick buck, try to catch the Trump coin and watch it fall
Yeah,
off of a cliff and play that whole game. But that's not, most of our community doesn't play that game, right? Well, our thesis is don't fuck this up, which
yeah,
means like, when you do take a risk on a project like this, if you're listening to this, on a recording, especially, you know that don't fuck this up thesis. Like, take the right amount of risk in your
Yeah.
portfolio. Don't get crazy with it. If it's a long term project, this
Yeah.
kind of value model, has legs, and there's going to be opportunities down the road. So I just, always just love asking that question just to see what comes out of it. Okay, so now I think
Yeah.
that's
Don't
you
don't 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 invest more than you can lose, right? That's the basic rule of thumb. It's like invest what you feel comfortable with.
exactly, exactly, like, and people. The great thing about this community is people have really done the work to understand the fundamentals of investing, right? So I'm sure there's not too
Mm.
many people going to fuck it up in here. If you're on YouTube watching this, stop watching YouTube. You should sign up for Real Vision. Come on over, get a lot of value. Okay, so do agents come activated? Yes, it sounds like they do. I mean, not yes, but like, you don't need to do anything per se with the license. You can then choose to program it or optimize them later on. Why SUI? We already answered that.
Mm.
How would I explain what the world will look like when with Swarm to a normie? I love that question. How would I explain what the world will look like with Swarm to a normie? I'd love that. Love you to answer that question. Well, first of all, let
Um,
me let me try to answer this question. You don't explain it to a normie, bro. Like, we're over here, 6 layers deep into Web 17, and like, we can barely understand this thing. If you try to say swarm of AI to a normie, they think it's like a swarm of bees that's going to attack them, right? But the way I would genuinely
I have a funny
conceptualize
one.
it to my grand. Okay, okay, okay.
I have a funny one. Like you'll be without a job.
I
Like
mean,
your
yeah,
job will be done by a swarm.
you could just tell them the truth, to be honest. Like, but honestly, this is
Yeah.
this is my conceptualization of the world that we're moving into, right? It's really easy to look at the world and go, oh, your
Mm.
job will be gone. But when you ask people, do you really want to do your job? Like, how much do you hate? You don't even have to ask, do you want to do your job? You have to ask, how much do you hate your job?
Mm.
And people will answer on a scale from
Yeah.
like, I'm all right doing it, to I absolutely want to gouge my own eyes out doing this thing, right? When you imagine moving into a world where all the menial shit is done by AI, yes, there's going to be turbulence along the way. But on the other side, I see a world, especially 2032 onwards, where the first turning and comes around, and we enter a world of consciousness, connection, activation, people living in
Mm.
alignment with their purpose in a shared economy where abundance isn't just stolen and taken, and it's shared in a much easier way. And I think, like Raul says, we have no idea what the economy looks like on the other side of this kind of economic
Yeah.
singularity. And I think what it looks like is
Yeah.
the menial stuff's all handled, and humans are left to be human. Now, some will suffer, but the good humans
Yep.
will, prosper. And if you say that to a normie, they will just stare at you with like their head tilted sideways. It won't make sense. So please don't explain this to grandma yet.
Like what?
Yeah, grandma's going to run in when it does a 800x and it's at the very top. That's when grandma's going to come to you and want to buy this thing. At that point, tell grandma, that's not how the game works. Go sign up for Real Vision, and Raul will teach you the game. Okay. Um, Another great question is, okay. Okay, Yannick, say I invest and buy a license. What is the level of contribution you would like and expect from me? And this is King Cobes asking. He's a king, so he's a very busy man. What kind of contribution would you like from him?
Hail the king. Yeah, that's a really good question. In the early stages, I think that what I expect is just positive vibes in terms of community building, helping people out, kind of like making sure that there's a lot of awareness first, because awareness is really important in the beginning, right? So
Mm-hmm.
awareness about what we're building, awareness about what's going down, and then once the infrastructure goes live and once you're able to build your agent, I definitely would like you to come and like at least like launch one agent and add that agent to the rollup new swarm or the truth protocol, and if that yields for you, then launch a bunch more. Because yeah, compound, man. Like just compound. So like the ask will not be big, but the opportunity will be there. right? It's like, okay, you already invested your money. There's a predetermined reward in tokens that you will get for it. That should be enough,
Hmm.
right? More than enough
Yeah.
for you to be satisfied. But for the project to be satisfied, it's obviously that, we get buy-in from you and we can actually have, like your involvement and just see it as like a big company, decentralized company, and whatever you contribute will be valued.
Yeah, just like a company, whatever kind of skill set you have, if you add it into the pool, it increases the value, and then you generate the value back. So kind of add it like that. I would honestly answer that question by saying, listen, you argue with Chamber of X all the time. How about you build a swarm to argue with him, and then you have time to go and do whatever you like and hook it up to Discord, and we would just love to watch that happen. And then your swarm can go up against his swarm, and that would just be something next level. Okay, the next question is if the underlying network turns out to have problems, let's say SUI can't handle the throughput in practice, can you easily switch to another settlement layer? And what would be the ramifications of that uh, beyond what would be the ramifications of that beyond historical swarm results?
So we're in talks with other ecosystems as well. We're in talks with BNB Chain, for example. Everybody wants the swarm to be on their network, which I understand, but like it's a little bit segmented and not every ecosystem is able to bring the kind of support that we require. So yeah, I mean, you can build the logic on any chain, right? It's smart contracts and infrastructure can be interoperable, and our vision is to make it interoperable. So SUI is just stage one, and then wherever, the road leads, it will, we will build something else. So interoperability is important because I think that you would want your agents also to be able to transfer assets between chains and manage assets on different chains and interact with different smart contracts. And maybe the dApp that you want to service is built on Arbitrum, but our logic is solely living on SUI. So, as the demand grows for certain ecosystems, then obviously we will branch out. But I think focus in the beginning is important.
For sure, for sure. And then also at the same time, there's a lot of the ecosystem being developed where there's like the interledgers being developed, the underledgers, the overledgers, layer zeros and axlars that are kind of creating the,
Yeah.
the the rails on that side as well. And then sure, transferring things back and forth is going to be a lot easier. Um, I like this question. How
Mm.
fast will the token accumulation times launch price pay off a license in theory? It's
In
it's the,
theory.
the the real question. I guess what they're asking is an old person pointing up and going, "When moon?" Right?
Yeah, I mean, my lawyers don't allow me to answer this question, but you
Let
could
me answer it. I have nothing to do with
you
your
could
lawyers. Let me answer this question.
you could
Um,
you could
when
calculate
yeah,
it.
when you run a complex calculation, all the experts agree that we have no fucking clue, right? So it could be right after launch. It could be after in the next millennia. Honestly, this is not how these things work. It's much better to kind of look at it from a perspective of, am I a short-term trade? Am I a short-term investor, medium or long-term? If you're short term, there's always volatility. Medium, you can have some faith that as the liquidity comes into markets and the model like this, honestly, my kind of macro framework says that this is where the world is headed. This is, a SUI leveraged play, right? We always talk about leveraged plays. This is a leveraged SUI play,
Mhm.
basically, that is being executed by experts and legends and with a good intention, a good heart. And you guys basically have a green check mark on so many different things that make the probability high that this is going to be a very successful project. But as far as like how
Mhm.
long does it take to pay off the license, I would imagine the moment I can actually sell it, or even like the first 12,000 licenses are being sold at $1,000. Then the price goes up, right? So by the time the next tier comes, I'm already in profit and I could sell my agent when the marketplace launches. Is that right?
Mhm. Yeah, and I think you'll be all right with the daily rewards distribution. To be honest, break even is not the issue. It's just like how high
Well,
is your target, right?
let me yeah,
How
let
long
me
can you
say it
wait?
without let me say it without the lawyer speak. What he's saying is it's going to be fucking bananas. Okay? If you combine the banana zone and the banana singularity, like here's what it's going to be. It's going to be this many bananas. All right? Okay. All right. We answered that question well. Okay, next question. Um, King Cobb's asking a question personally for himself. He's like, I am completely useless. And oh, well, that's pretty accurate. Um, so I can just lease it out or get somebody else to develop it. Yep, we've already answered that question. Thank you for the useless question.
Yeah.
How can owning agent licenses be leveraged for passive income? That's a good question.
Yeah, so the first one is obviously the daily rewards distribution, which is a form. Um, I will not say the word. I'm not allowed, but it's the word you said. It starts with
Yeah,
a P.
right.
And
Yeah.
beyond that, the leasing will be a good option, right? So you might want to give your license to somebody else that wants to build a swarm, and you take a share of the revenue. That's another way. And then additionally, you can also just hold your license and then get access to the operator pools and the shares of the assets that will be launched on top of the platform. And I kind of want to answer the same another question in this topic that I'm touching on because I saw
Hmm.
somebody ask that it looks like the swarm use case is primarily focusing around decentralized truth. And the main social networks in place, they already have their own centralized system. And question one is how will Swarm interact with the big networks and how flexible is the Swarm use cases outside of decentralized truth? So the core of Swarm network is actually a Swarm building framework which can be used completely independently from our truth protocol. The truth protocol is just my personal um, um, kind of like burning desire to showcase the world what can be done with an efficient and large scale swarm and actually bring immediate utility to other people that want to join either our swarm or build their own swarms, right? So
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
like the use case is not just decentralized truth, it's just that decentralized truth is a very good use case. So yeah, so that's basically how you have to see it. So now that framework allows anybody to build a swarm to their liking. It doesn't have to be associated with the truth, decentralized truth or arbitrary data on chain. You can build a swarm for DeFi trading. And that person can launch the swarm for DeFi trading and create an asset for that swarm. And the operator pool will allow you to get a small fraction of the asset that's generated. So that's another way.
Okay, so I love that. As like an entrepreneur, here's my plan of how to build 1,000 passive income streams. Active at the beginning. I think first of all, passive income I think is becoming a little too popular these days. What about active income? How about we actually earn the money by
Mm,
doing work, right? So here's my plan for doing it. Like,
yeah.
I have businesses here in Indonesia that have no idea how to implement AI into their system. I show them, I start a business and I go into their business and I look at their needs. I'll even, I'll have a team do it, go into the
Mm,
business, analyze their needs, look at what kind of swarm would fit that. I have a bunch of licenses. I
mm,
would, hire out my license for 50 times the price, and I would solve,
mm,
a very expensive set of problems for this business. And then, basically
mm,
have people who understand how to, or I would go to the marketplace, hire a bunch of people to actually, build this use case, hand it all off to them, take a nice piece off the top, and then, from the actual use case that's being implemented, I'm actually contributing more to the
mm,
network, which means I'm then able to, generate more tokens along the way. So there's so many different ways of utilizing it. You have
mm,
to be kind of creative in your way of thinking. And then of course down the road, as if I have 100 businesses where I'm solving $1 million problems, and those businesses are going to be willing to pay me $100,000 to solve those problems, which means you end up making a bunch of money along the way, but also in a way that you're genuinely actually solving real world things that people need to have done, because most people have no idea that this even exists, let alone that something like this can solve all their problems.
mm. And then an interesting point to mention here is that the marginal cost of you building out these great use cases through swarms, both from a time investment perspective and a cost perspective, is only going to decrease more rapidly. However, the knowledge of building these things is not going to scale with the demand. We cannot expect that, you know, let's say your mom will go out and figure out how to build a swarm for her business. Probably she will just not do that, right? So she needs somebody else. But there's only so many people that are now already, in this game, and our mission really is to make it really simple for people that at least can imagine, like a good use case, and then kind of like just like what we started, like get fucking to it, action.
Exactly. I mean, the first thing I'm thinking is I'm just going to build a swarm that builds swarms. And then I'm going to go to a business and build a
Yeah,
swarm that goes to a business, right? I'm literally going to build a swarm that goes to the business. I'm going to build a
yeah.
swarm that talks to my team. I'm going to build a swarm that builds swarms, and I'm going to have those swarms swarm around swarms, and then just we get real swarmy real quick, right? So there's so many layers to this thing. Um, so is there a website or doc explaining all the stuff you're discussing? Yes. You just came in. We're going to post a link to the Telegram chat that we have, and in there you're going to find the kind of white paper and all the details. We're gonna swarm you with all this information. We'll get that to you. What dollar region does the token launch in? It launches at $1 billion. That's the kind of stuff that we normally can't answer, and it will come along the way. What tokens will you accept to purchase these licenses? It is USDC on Sui. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Now there's a question because I have, I'm an old guy. I'm about 76 years old. I don't know how to get USDC on Sui.
Yeah, we have a really nice step-by-step breakdown of how to do it. It's the purchase guide. I'll drop the link as well. It's
And
um it's
I
basically
will
like
go ahead, sir.
a four-step process. So it's easy.
Yeah, and me being the grandpa that I am, I'm gonna go through that and I'm gonna make a tutorial video. So then now that we have all these juicy details, we're gonna give you a basically step-by-step guide on how to participate and kind of distill these details down because you know I'm sure a lot of you won't listen to an hour and a half conversation, but I'll be honest, if you make it this far, you actually deserve to be part of this journey. If you have ADD and you couldn't even make it to 1 hour 26, I feel like you just don't deserve to have pre-sale access to some of the greatest opportunities you're ever going to have, right? Um, okay. So you're asking like, so last question is one of the last questions is okay. If somebody
Mhm.
doesn't know how to use anything, doesn't know anything about coding, doesn't know, they're very like not technically adept, and maybe they're too busy or something. Um, then they buy a license. Like, how would they? What do they
Mhm.
do? Do they can they just list it somewhere and somebody can pick up the license and do all the rest of the stuff?
Yeah, yeah, we'll have a marketplace for that. So even if you actually have no know-how at all, then just see it as an investment opportunity and lease it out to somebody that is, interested in doing that for you on your behalf, or either you exit and you resell.
I love it. Okay, so this has been fantastic. First of all, I really appreciate you doing this with us first, but also I really appreciate where you're coming from, your energy, your ethics. It's really hard to find people that actually have a genuine mission to do something good, especially right now as we speak. The president of the United States is rugging normal people with shit coins with his wife and I mean, I love the guy. Listen, you guys all know, and he's still my favorite choice for president. But I expected that. While the president is rugging people, it's really nice to sit in a room and have a conversation with somebody who is doing the exact opposite. Seems like a fantastic mission. I really appreciate you being here. Do you have any closing thoughts? Any kind of like wrappers you want to put around this, or should we just leave it at rugging people?
Um, no, man. Thanks for having me.
I love
I love
that,
your
man.
energy.
He's like,
And by
he's
the
like,
way,
listen, yeah.
my family is from Indonesia too. Like my grandma, my grandpa, they were Indonesian. You cannot tell, but
Epic,
yeah.
man. Well, listen, in that case, you got to come to Indonesia. You got to come to Bali. My home is always open. We have a healing retreat. We're going to do mud baths. And I'm pretty sure when we
Nice.
have all these swarms and stuff, that's all we're going to be doing. We're going to be hanging out, eating our own bananas, having our own durian, connecting back with the family and doing mud baths and hanging out. And everybody else here, thank you so much for like being here and listening. You're all welcome to a mud bath. But more importantly, action steps. You are going to get access to a Telegram chat, but also we'll post this in the crypto groups as well, in all our channels as well. I don't want to be shilling this like we're not. First of all, and this has nothing to do with Real Vision. Okay, this is not officially associated with Real Vision. We're not. This is just us DJs playing around. So when I post the links, remember that this has nothing to do with it. But more, to not just kind of flood the channels with stuff, we have a Telegram channel where we're kind of coordinating all these things. And you're going to get the links to the purchasing guide. You're going to get the links to the white paper. You're going to get the link to this video, a description video on the 27th. Let's go bananas. Let's go swarm this thing. And I appreciate you, Yannick. You are named well, man. You're definitely a
Awesome.
unique guy for sure. I appreciate you. Take care, brother.
Thanks, Sim. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Appreciate your time and hope to see you within the community.
For sure.